So this is Geralt of Rivia. He's from the series The Witcher. This one in specific is from the Netflix series, by the way, not the book or the video game, but I still wanted to draw him. So I went ahead and looked up some images, found that one that you just saw, and was like super enticed by it, so I decided to sketch up something based on it. So after I went ahead and sketched it up, I didn't know if I should continue it traditionally or go ahead and like make a full illustration digitally. So I asked some friends for some advice, and one of them said why not do both and explain like the difference in like the coloring process and stuff. So I thought that that was actually a pretty good idea. This also gives me a chance to explain kind of like the benefits and the disbenefits of traditional and digital art, because both of them have some really good strong suits, and then both of them also kind of have like a not so strong suit. So yeah. So what I have here first, of course, is the traditional version. This is the one that I did in my sketchbook, afterwards inked it, and now you get to see the coloring. You see, the coloring process is building up more than anything. Well, when it comes mostly to markers. You have to start with a base layer that's super light, or medium tone, whatever you're working with, and then head down the color gradient. So I'm going more off of the skin tone from the video game, from the Witcher series. So usually he's really super pale in the series, so I decided to go with that because that's the one that I'm more well known with and kind of makes sense story-wise because of how everything is done and blah blah blah, whatever. So that's how that happened. But I basically work up the color gradient from there, trying to make sure I establish some kind of shadows in the right area and all of that stuff. The cool part about doing it traditionally or like in a sketchbook or something is you get to see how it comes together, like on the page instead of on a screen, which I know sounds weird, but there is definitely, I feel, a disconnect when it comes to sketching or doing stuff on the like tablet or on like the computer or stuff like that. It just feels like there's something not connecting normally, which I know sounds strange, but I really do feel that way, and I've heard a lot of other people feel that way as well. I also feel like it's significantly more accessible in comparison to digital in several different like ways. So we have one way, which is just like buying a tablet to draw on, or an iPad or whatever, is really expensive, and a lot of the time like it's not very like entry level friendly unless you have that money to spend on that stuff. So having something like a sketchbook or something traditional to just do your artwork in is way easier to deal with money wise. There's also just like supplies as well that you could get for pretty cheap. Pencils you could get at the dollar store. Some places sell markers for like $10, $15, or even less, like at Five Below. So you have a very like pocket friendly option when it comes to using a sketchbook in comparison to trying to get like a computer slash tablet for your art. But there's also the disbenefit of messing up, and that's probably the suckiest part of all. When you're sketching and everything, if you wear down the paper too much when you sketch, that kind of sucks because it ruins it. If you ink and you mess up the inking, that's like also a big fat L, and then the coloring, if you mess that up, you mess it up. So I feel like traditional art needs a lot of practice to try and get done correctly, so this way you don't mess up your artwork. But at the same time, that kind of helps with drawing and with art, because you are learning moves like with your hand much quicker and more efficiently, and on top of that, it like helps you kind of navigate way better where things are gonna go much sooner and quicker. So I think that the benefit really of traditional art is you learn good hand movement, good placement, all that stuff, because of the sole fact that you don't want to mess up. So you're going to try and perfect it a little bit more in comparison. Too much perfection, however, might drive you a little crazy, but it'd be like that sometimes. So I'm very precise with my work, or at least a lot of the time I try to be. So there is that factor that eventually I think you will get the idea of how to do something in your process your way, and how to do it as good as possible. So that's also another great thing I feel like when it comes to using the sketchbook. Another great thing about it is, let's say you do have a tablet or any computer drawing program, whatever, right? You can draw in your sketchbook a sketched up idea first if you're like me, if you do both traditional and digital. Then afterwards take that traditional drawing that you did and then upload it into your drawing program. So this way you can have a base to go ahead and work off of. Overall, for me, traditional art will always have a great appeal to it. There's just something that I can always go back to, which is traditional. I can always have a pencil and paper and then just go ahead and sketch my heart out or go ahead and color in what I want. It's definitely a great way to really give yourself some kind of art therapy without thinking about how much work you have to put into it sometimes. So yeah. When it comes to digital art, I definitely feel like there are a lot of pros and cons. A lot of the pros are it's way more forgiving than traditional art, in a sense where you can erase something and it is gone. You don't have to worry about getting it right the first time. So that's an awesome thing. You can undo at any time and not worry about the paper getting crinkled if you erase it, or just overall messing up the paper or anything like that, because it's on a screen, so everything is there for you. But the thing is, when you have that power to constantly undo and redo and all that stuff, you're gonna go bonkers on your artwork, because you're gonna continuously try over and over and over again to perfect a line or the way you colored something or something along those lines. It really feels like, for me personally, I have to do a lot more perfectionism when it comes to digital, because of the sole fact that there's more pressure on me to do it that way. So it's because I have the access to do something on a computer screen and make it way easier, I feel like the artwork has to come out even better than if it was to do in my sketchbook. So for me personally, it causes not more stress, but a definite need to do better because I am on digital. It also takes for me significantly longer to do anything digital, just because of that factor that I know I can undo as many times as I want and just take my time on the whole thing. So something that only takes me an hour in my sketchbook might take me 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 hours digitally, because I'm constantly going back and forth with myself as to what looks good and what doesn't on digital. One big huge benefit on digital art though is that you don't have to spend money on additional supplies. Everything is in the program. Different kinds of brushes, every single color known to man, and it's way easier to look up references along with use them in the artwork because it's right there on the screen for you. So having access to everything is significantly easier because it's all streamlined onto one device. Plus, when it comes to the process of drawing and coloring, you could do it in basically any single step you want. For traditional, you have to go with sketch, then ink, then color, or color and ink, depending on who you are or how you like to do things. But when it comes to digital, you could do it in any process you want. You could put down the color first, then go on top in ink. You could sketch and then just color right directly on top, not use any line work. There's so many different options because the program is so much more forgiving in comparison. So it's not as precise when it comes to how to do the certain steps or processes. Like here, I start off with the middle tone, I add in my highlights and my shadows after. But on traditional, I could never do that. I have to put down the lightest tone and then go up, specifically with markers. Painting, I think, is a little more forgiving. Stuff like that is definitely. But when it comes to my personal process, I go light to dark when it comes to traditional. And when it comes to digital, I go medium, dark, and then light, which is weird because it's kind of backwards of what I almost, kind of do. But it makes the process for me way easier to see where shadows go and where highlights go in comparison to traditional. It's also significantly easier to make finished illustrations when it comes to digital because of all the benefits that I stated previously compared to digital, which is like if you have a commission and you're doing it digitally, you don't have to worry about messing up as much because everything can be undone. But when it comes to traditional, once you've already sketched and inked it and everything and you mess up and it's a commission, you kind of have to start over again because you want to give your client your best work. So that's another good thing about digital. Another thing that I feel like is the really sucky part for me, and I'm still like in this phase, is the learning curve of doing digital. I struggled so hard to even get where I am now with digital, and I still struggle really hard. I can't digitally paint for my life. So what I do is like a combination of like inking and painting kind of almost, but it's like not really, but it's the best way that I can figure it out because I can't digitally paint to save me. Like if someone put me in a room, it was like digitally paint or you're dead. I'm literally on the floor, gone. It's over because I can't do that, and I've tried so many times. The learning curve is so hard. That's the sucky part. So like for me, if I could have, I probably would have tried to start out digital and then go traditional, but realistically, I probably would have had the same learning curve to make with traditional. So at the end of the day, it's just whatever you feel more comfortable with and however you feel like suits your style and your need to color or line or anything like that. So there's definitely that huge curve, which really sucks because I still struggle so hard with it. But as a result, I have gotten a lot better because I would have to practice way more on digital just to even get to this point. So that's also a factor that I definitely would have to take in if I was like considering telling somebody what you should start with. I personally always say start with traditional and then work your way up to digital, especially because digital is really expensive a lot of the time if you don't already have the devices to work on. So both are a large investment down the line. If you're doing it digitally, you don't have to pay for the supplies, but like when I bought my iPad, it was a lot of money and I saved up for a long time to get this iPad. So I have to like make the commitment now that I'm definitely doing digital for at least some points in my life. And the same thing with traditional, I ended up spending up a lot of money on supplies. So again, it's just what you prefer and what you like when it comes to your art. But at the end of the day, it's mostly whatever you're happier with when you're using them. I love using both the items, both for different things. The traditional is more for peace of mind and loving the work that I do, and digital is both for loving the work that I do and trying to kind of push myself and where my brain goes for like all my art needs. So yeah, do I think one is better than the other? No, but I do think one has pros, one has cons, and so does the other. So yeah, thanks for watching, and remember I love you. Bye.